I don't know how all of you are feeling, but for me it's been a really rough week. I think there's been war and rumors of war and the traumatic, post-traumatic stress reactions to hearing about war. And I don't think there's anybody who's really not touched by some of the violence that's going on somewhere in the world. Whether it's starving children in refugee camps, whether it's bombs that are falling on civilians, whether it's war in the way that we accept war as if it's normal. So I wanted to, talk a little bit about that and read from some of the people who've been thinking about it. There was war in the time of the Buddha. There were even serial killers. I think I mentioned once, going to a workshop and hearing this story about this serial killer who's walking down the road with severed fingers and hands and a necklace around his neck. And he's decided that his next victim is going to be the Buddha. And he walks down the road toward the Buddha. And the Buddha fearlessly walks toward him, knowing what was in this person's heart and not reacting out of anger, not reacting out of defensiveness, accepting in the moment who and what is coming toward him, which could have been his death. And even though each one of us knows that one day we will die, we certainly don't expect it in this moment, in the next 10 minutes, the next hour, or today. Death is something we want to put off for as long as we can. And that's a normal kind of wish. But I want to read you something that is from Thich Nhat Hanh, written during the time of wars. And while it's in 1966, it could have been today. Those that have not exploded. I don't know. I just don't know why they hurl grenades at these young people. Why wish to kill those boys with still innocent brows, those girls with ink-stained hands? What was their crime? To hear the voice of compassion, to come and live in a hamlet, to help the villagers, teach the children, work in the rice paddies. That's all. Last night, when those grenades burst, 12 young people fell with mangled bodies and burnt skin. One girl's flesh took more than 600 metal bits of shrapnel. This morning, 2 are buried. Each waits for the sun to rise again in our motherland. Each longs for peace, to be reborn as a butterfly. We accept death and sorrow, but listen, brothers and sisters, beings of all genders. These grenades have burst and ripped apart the sky. These boys and girls are gone, leaving a trail of blood. But there are more grenades than those that burst last night. They remain still in the heart of man, unknown the time of their detonation, unknown when they will desecrate our land, unknown the time they will annihilate our people. And still, we beg you to believe that there is no hatred in our hearts, no rancor in our souls. What the world needs, what we all need, is love. Come, hear me, for time grows short, and danger is everywhere. Let us take these grenades out of our hearts, out of our motherland, out of humankind. Let us stand, side by side. This is a poem that celebrates those who stand for life, those who at the risk of their lives are seeking to make the world better, those who stand at the side of the oppressed, the side of those who have no food, the side of those who are oppressed because of their race, caste, ethnicity. To stand on the side of the oppressed, to stand with the 99% is risky business. Sometimes it can cost your life. And yet, if we're all going to die, is there anything better, more noble to do than to stand on the right side, on the side that offers the open hand of giving and not the closed fist of war? Each of us comes from a people that has known war and oppression. Sometimes the oppressors have come from outside of our cultures, but always there were oppressors within our cultures. I know, as an African American woman, that some of my African ancestors sold others of my ancestors away. For some of you, dictators, people who wanted to hold all the material goodies, people who actually believed that you could take it with you, that when you died, if you were buried with slaves or wives or horses or things, that they would go with you into the underworld, into the afterlife, that there too you would have servants, that there would be a hierarchy. And if you had palaces on this side of the veil, you were going to have palaces on the other side, and you would have people who worked in them, just like here. I don't think most of us would want to go to an afterlife that was filled with the same inequities that we have lived with here. I think that for most of us, what we want to do, what we take birth to do, is to make the world better, more peaceful, that we come here to care. A couple of years ago, I was in South Korea performing, and I was sitting at lunch with a young Korean woman, and she told me how when she was eating as a child and she didn't clear her plate, her mother said, "Clear your plate. There are children starving in North Korea." And I thought about my mother who said, "Clear your plate. There are children starving in China." Many of us come from traditions that recognize the sacredness of food. Many of us come from traditions where when the stranger comes to your house, before you ask who they are, why they are here, what they are fleeing, you offer them food, you offer them water, you treat your guest as if that guest could be a god in disguise. You offer, even if there's very little in the house, you offer them something so that they can be nourished. These traditions of compassion, of loving kindness, of hospitality, are the traditions that enabled us as a human species to survive. If we didn't care for the children, if we didn't take care of our elders, we would have died out long, long time ago. Even the animals mourn their dead. other mammals try and free their kin from traps. Compassion is in our DNA. And yet, if we look around, it seems that war is in our DNA too. When children are born, they don't come out deciding that they will be serial killers. Most of the time, people who do terrible bad things have been told terrible bad stories, have been told and have had things done to them that said that they must be afraid of the stranger, that someone is out to get them, that someone is out to kill them. Gibran said that when asked in the Prophet, what is evil? And the Prophet's response was, evil is good tortured by its own thirst and its own hunger. And I think that at this time where it's so easy to blame the police, the people in authority, the dominant culture, dominant religion that's suppressing the minority religion, it really is important to remember that all the good and all the evil that is done by humans are the acts of humans. And that in every human heart, there are choices we make. Do we grab and take for ourselves only? Or do we, with an open hand, share even the smallness of what we have with others? For each of you, there are questions. Is nonviolence the only way? Are there other ways to resist? Do we need to have righteous wars in order to hold our territory, fight for liberation, change the world? I'm not here to say what the right path is. Each of you has a story, a history, one or more cultural roots. Each of you has a moral compass to which you vibrate, a lodestone to which you turn. But what I do know is that as long as we take vengeance on acts that were done against us and those we love, we make a tapestry, a cloth. We make a road that ensures that violence, harmful violence, will continue. What are we called to do in this time? How do we find a way to walk? Not letting injustice roll over and cripple us, interrupting it, stopping it. How do we do that? What is the risk that we take when we do this? At a workshop that I went to at Spirit Rock, Think for African American Women, these 5 precepts were passed out. They're from a Buddhist community in Southern California, I believe with the name of Manzanita Village. And it's their interpretation of the Dharma. Number 1, aware of the violence in the world and of the power of nonviolent resistance, I stand in the presence of the ancestors, the earth, and future generations, and I vow to cultivate the compassion that seeks to protect each living being. Just think about that for a minute. What would it be like to stand in the presence of the earth, the ancestors, and all future generations, vowing to cultivate compassion that would protect all beings, human beings, sentient species, standing people, meaning the rocks and the stones, the plant people? What would it mean to vow to protect each living being? Is that a vow that we can live in, or only some of the time? What does it mean if you were considering taking this vow to cultivate compassion for all living beings? And that means not just the ones you like, not just the ones who love you, not even just the difficult beings and the neutral people, the male person, somebody you see at the grocery store. What would it mean to cultivate compassion, even for those who are taking acts of violence against you, who do not love you, who do not respect your culture? Is this a vow you want to take? Take a breath in. Let your gaze soften. Think about this question. What line or limits would you draw around this question? The way of nonviolence is not easy. And just think for a minute about whatever your response was. I'm going to read the second precept. Aware of the poverty and greed in the world, and of the intrinsic abundance of the earth, I stand in the presence of the ancestor, the earth, and future generations, and vow to cultivate simplicity, gratitude, and generosity that has no limits. What would that mean? To only desire what you need, not more than you need, not enough to fill 3 closets filled, 2 houses, a boat, a yacht, whatever, a summer home here, a winter home there. What would it mean to cultivate simplicity? To not want more than what you actually need to live. Is that a vow you could take? Is that a vow you even want to take? Take a breath. Let your gaze soften. And notice what's coming up in your heart and in your mind. And because we are Sangha, which means that we come together to support each other as spiritual beings, that we recognize that our differences of age, ethnicity, spirituality, ability and disability, gender identity, sexual orientation, all those are simply the clothes we wear over our essential beingness, which is of the spirit. So, just for a moment, look around at the beings in this room. These are our siblings in spirit. Think about what it would mean to really sit in a place where you were open to dialogue with somebody who thought in a really different way than you did. Perhaps you want to image a boss who's been a particular problem for you. Perhaps there's somebody in the family who just is getting on your nerves. Perhaps this is a time that this friend of yours is not acting so friendly. Just let yourself come to awareness around the person or a situation that is charged, is difficult, and I think we could say, whoever you're imaging, we can put them in the frame. This is a difficult person for you to love. So, there are many practices in Buddhism. Some of them are really monastic practices in which you retreat from the world. You say prayers for the well-being of everyone in it. But most of us in this room are not in a monastic practice. We're living in the world. We are lay people. And at any moment, we can be called upon to practice what it is that we're learning, the equanimity, the openness, the curiosity, the open curiosity, not judgment when we come to something new. So let's image somebody who is difficult. Now, it doesn't have to be the most difficult person. It doesn't have to be the memory of when somebody was actually physically attacking you or you felt your life was in jeopardy. But someone who you just know it would be difficult if they walked in this room, walked by you, not somebody you want to see. So I want you to start, just breathe into the belly. Feel the edges and boundaries of your own body. Let your breathing be even. Let it involve your belly. And just take some slow breath. Breathe in your guides, your guardian angels, the spirits of your ancestors, your higher power. Breathe in the energy of those who care for you, those whose shoulders you stand on. Breathe that in. And then release, breathe out fear, doubt, shame, whatever negative emotions are around you in this moment. Imagine that you are sitting in the place of your heart, that your heart actually holds enough compassion to raise the vibration of the entire planet. You can call this your Buddha nature, your Christ self, your inner spirit, whatever it is for you. Every people has its own name for this place. Sit for a moment in the place of your compassion. And Buddhist mudras are the gestures with the esoteric meaning that are rooted in Buddhist spirituality. If you raise your hand, palm up, the meaning of this gesture is have no fear. So I want to encourage you to imagine that you are sitting in the place of powerful compassion. Your power is in your heart. Let the hand, one hand, be in the mudra of having no fear. Let one hand rest in the lap, being open to the teachings, being open to all the wisdom that you need. Imagine that from this place, this difficult person is walking by you. Stand in the place of your heart. Stand in peace in the place of your heart. stand in peace in the place of your heart, protected against the negative, proof against the slings and arrows of contempt, anger, hatred. Be rooted in the place of your heart and let this person pass you, or if you're willing, stand in front of you. From this place, send out peace. From this place, let the peace that surrounds your spirit body frame be proof against attack. From this place of peace and protection, see this person who is difficult. And when you look at them from the place of your power, your inner wisdom, and your knowing, what do you see about them? How can you peaceably move their negative energy out of your life path? How can you open a dialogue that makes it safer for you? Not to heal them or change them, just for you. You don't have to hold a hand if you're tired, but just keep the sense of standing in a place of peace and protection. Before a force that is difficult, perhaps threatening. What in this moment is the wisdom of your belly and gut? What is the wisdom of your heart? What is the wisdom of the mind in terms of this person or this situation? And finally, what is the wisdom that Spirit asks that you bring